Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the life you've been living, the choices you've made, the loves you've lost, the words you've spoken, may not have been entirely your own. You sit at the edge of your bed, staring at the floor, and it dawns on you with a quiet terror. What if something deep within you, something you've never fully seen, has been steering your every step? What if the story you call my life is not authored by your conscious will, but by forces buried beneath the surface, invisible yet inescapable? You rise, brush your teeth, drink your coffee, and head to work. Everything looks normal. The morning light draped across the buildings, the shuffle of strangers on the sidewalk, the familiar hum of routine. And yet the suspicion lingers, growing heavier with each passing hour. Did you really choose this path? Did you really choose the way you react to people, the types of relationships you enter, the fears you avoid, the patterns you repeat? Or were you chosen by something within you that never asked for your permission? Carl Jung once warned that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. His words strike like lightning. Could it be that what we call destiny, or bad luck, or coincidence, is nothing more than our unexamined unconscious at work? Perhaps the jobs we settle for, the partners we cling to, the anxieties that haunt us at night are not random burdens, but messages from the depths, cryptic signals from the hidden side of the psyche. But here lies the unsettling paradox. If your unconscious is shaping your every choice, then what does it mean to say you are in control? Who is the I making decisions, the voice that speaks in your head, or the shadow that whispers beneath it? How much of your life is authentically yours, and how much is a performance scripted by forgotten traumas, repressed desires, and ancient archetypes older than civilization itself? Consider the strange repetition of your patterns. Why do you find yourself drawn to the same kinds of people, even when they hurt you? Why do you sabotage yourself at the very moment success is near? Why do you fear precisely what you most long for? Each of these riddles points to something deeper than logic, something that logic alone cannot untangle. It points to a hidden author, one who doesn't speak in words, but in symbols, dreams, compulsions, and irrational impulses. The unconscious is not silent. It is constantly writing the script of your life. It surfaces in your slips of the tongue, in the dreams you dismiss, in the emotions you can't explain. Yet because you don't see it, you mistake its script for reality. You tell yourself, "This is just who I am," or "This is just how life works," not realizing that these statements may be nothing more than the unconscious masquerading as truth. And so, the great question emerges, one that cannot be brushed aside without consequence. If you are not the sole author of your own life, then who or what is living through you? Are you awake, or merely a character in a play whose ending has already been rehearsed? This question gnaws at the edges of consciousness, demanding an answer. To ignore it is to remain asleep, drifting along in a dream you mistake for reality. But to face it is to step into dangerous territory where the familiar boundaries of identity begin to dissolve. And so, the stage is set. A life seemingly directed by your conscious choices, yet haunted by a deeper truth, that beneath every decision lies a hidden force, waiting to be confronted. If the unconscious is silently scripting your life, the question then becomes, why does it remain hidden at all? Why would the most decisive force in your existence be cloaked in darkness, buried beneath the surface of awareness? Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is not an accident nor a flaw in human design. It is a necessity. Consciousness, fragile and finite, can only carry so much. Imagine if every memory, every wound, every desire, every archetype were constantly present in your mind. You would drown in chaos. The unconscious exists as a container, a vast reservoir holding all that consciousness cannot bear. But what is buried does not vanish. It waits, it festers, it reshapes the world around you until you are forced to face it. Here is the hidden problem. What you repress does not simply disappear. It governs you in disguise. Jung called this the shadow, the rejected parts of yourself, the instincts you disown, the impulses you deny. You bury them because society told you they were unacceptable, or because your family taught you they were dangerous, or because you yourself could not tolerate their existence. Yet they remain, pulsing beneath the surface, influencing your choices, shaping your fears, dictating your attractions. Thinkers throughout history have grappled with this paradox of human nature. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the danger of suppressing instincts, warning that what we repress returns with vengeance, twisting itself into resentment or self-destruction. Schopenhauer, even darker, saw the will itself, an irrational, blind force driving all existence, as something we can never fully escape. To him, our conscious lives were mere illusions painted over the relentless will, like thin paper over an abyss. And Sartre, though a champion of freedom, admitted that most people flee from the burden of authentic choice into bad faith, a self-deception that conveniently hides the truth of their own responsibility. Each of these thinkers touched in their own way on the same hidden root. The forces we cannot or will not face are the ones that secretly govern us. Jung merely gave those. Is problem a name and a map? Psychology confirms this. We now know that much of our decision-making is unconscious. Heuristics, biases, emotional triggers shape us long before rational thought arrives to justify our behavior. Daniel Kahneman showed how our brains run on two systems. One, fast, automatic, intuitive, largely unconscious. The other, slow, deliberate, conscious. Yet most of the time, it is the first system, the unconscious one, that dominates. And here lies the problem in its starkest form. Your unconscious is not just a hidden storehouse, it is an active force, shaping your identity in ways you do not see. You may believe you are choosing freely, but in truth, you are reenacting old wounds, fulfilling unspoken cultural scripts, or chasing archetypal patterns that have existed since the dawn of myth. You might think you dislike conflict, when in reality you fear the rage you've buried since childhood. You might think you are ambitious, when in fact you are trying to earn the love that was denied to you. You might think you fall in love by choice, when in truth you are drawn toward familiar wounds disguised as intimacy. The unconscious, then, is not passive darkness. It is a mirror turned away from you, forcing you to stumble forward without seeing your own face. This is the hidden problem. As long as the unconscious remains unseen, you are not living your own life. You are living the aftershocks of forgotten experiences, the scripts of culture, the whisper of archetypes, the unhealed shadow. And the longer this remains unexamined, the greater the cost. The hidden problem might seem abstract, but its consequences are anything but. They seep into every corner of life, subtle and invisible, until you wake one day to realize that your existence has been shaped by forces you never named. Think of the way you repeat your patterns as if caught in a loop. You promise yourself, this time will be different, and yet it isn't. You leave one toxic relationship only to find yourself in another that looks eerily similar. You change jobs, hoping for fulfillment, only to encounter the same dissatisfaction in a new disguise. The unconscious has a way of pulling you back to the same stage, replaying the same drama, until you recognize the hidden script driving it. This is not coincidence. It is what Jung called complexes, clusters of unresolved emotion and memory that live in the unconscious, autonomous and alive. They act almost like little personalities within you, each with its own agenda. You might think you are making a rational decision, but often it is a complex, silently tugging the strings. A childhood wound may reappear in the shape of a demanding boss. A forgotten betrayal may resurface in the suspicion you carry into new love. You call it bad luck, but in truth, it is your unconscious leading you back to what you have not yet faced. Neuroscience offers its own grim confirmation. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, reacts before the rational prefrontal cortex has time to interpret. By the time you consciously decide, the emotional script is already running. Your body has leapt before your mind could think. The unconscious always moves first, and the conscious mind merely follows, explaining after the fact why you chose as you did. This shapes entire societies. Look at politics. How easily fear and anger are manipulated. Entire nations can be swept into movements not by reason, but by the stirring of collective complexes. The shadow projected outward, the fear of the other, the hunger for archetypal saviors who promise redemption. Jung warned of this in his study of Nazi Germany. When individuals fail to face their shadows, the collective shadow rises to engulf them all. Culture itself thrives on these unconscious forces. Advertising doesn't appeal to logic. It speaks in symbols, in archetypes. It tells you that buying a car will make you powerful, that a certain brand of perfume will make you desirable, that success is measured by the objects you own. Beneath the glossy surface, these are unconscious triggers, myths of strength, love, and immortality, repackaged for consumption, and you, unaware, buy not just the product but the story attached to it. Even your sense of identity, the I you defend so fiercely, is shaped by unseen forces. Social norms seep into you, dictating how you should act, whom you should love, what success should mean. You call these values your own, but they are whispers of the collective unconscious, inherited myths masquerading as personal truth. The consequence is subtle, yet devastating. You live in a cage without knowing the bars are there. You believe you are free, yet your freedom consists of moving along pre-laid tracks, reenacting patterns so old they predate your birth. And the cost? A quiet erosion of authenticity. A life lived not as a singular flame, but as a dim reflection of forces unacknowledged. Anxiety that seems baseless, depression that feels inexplicable, compulsions that leave you baffled. All symptoms of a life hijacked by what you refuse to see. The unconscious does not forgive neglect. What you do not face, you will repeat. What you repress, you will project. What you deny, you will become enslaved to. The unseen consequences are already here, shaping your days, narrowing your choices, whispering through your fears. The question is no longer whether the unconscious controls your life. It is whether you will dare to confront it before it consumes you. If the unconscious has been scripting your life in silence, then rebellion begins with the act of seeing. Not resisting, not destroying, not denying, but seeing. Jung insisted that the path to freedom is not to banish the shadow, but to confront it, to bring what is hidden into light. Yet this is no simple task. To see the unconscious is to risk shattering the comfortable illusion that you already know yourself. The rebellion starts with honesty, the rarest form of courage. Imagine holding a mirror that does not flatter, one that reflects not only the face you present to the world, but also the fears, the envies, the cruelties you conceal even from yourself. Could you bear to look? Could you acknowledge that the person you despise most might live inside you, waiting to be recognized? Most people cannot, and so they project the shadow outward, onto enemies, onto strangers, onto ideologies. They say, "It is not me, it is them." But this only strengthens the shadow's grip. Rebellion demands the opposite move, to turn inward, to admit, "Yes, it is me. These darker impulses are mine too." This act of reclamation is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. Wholeness is not perfection, it is integration. It is the refusal to amputate parts of yourself simply because they are inconvenient. The rebel, in Jung's sense, is the one who dares to reclaim what others would rather bury. How then do you begin? Start by listening to your dreams. Jung believed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, not random noise, but symbolic messages. They speak in images because the unconscious does not use words. It uses myth. A snake might not be just a snake. A stranger might be a forgotten version of yourself. Pay attention, and you will see the map being drawn for you in sleep. Next, observe your projections. When someone provokes a reaction in you that feels disproportionate, irrational anger, sudden admiration, deep resentment, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing in them? This is shadow work in real time, reclaiming what you once exiled. Philosophy adds another layer to this rebellion. Nietzsche urged us to embrace the instincts we fear, to transmute them into creative power. One must have chaos in oneself, he wrote, to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos is not the enemy, it is the raw material of transformation. To break free is not to sterilize yourself, but to allow even your darker drives to be reshaped into something luminous. Consider, too, the words of Viktor Frankl, who survived the camps and saw the abyss firsthand. He realized that even in the darkest conditions, freedom remains, the freedom to choose one's attitude, to respond to what cannot be changed. Here is another rebellion, not against the unconscious by brute force, but against the passive role of victimhood. To choose awareness, to choose meaning, even in the face of what lies beyond your control. Rebellion, then, is not a single act, but a way of being. It is the daily discipline of turning toward what you would rather avoid. It is learning to hear the unconscious without being enslaved by it, to walk the narrow path between blindness and obsession. And slowly, with each act of recognition, you loosen the chains. You begin to live, not as a puppet of hidden forces, nor as a self-deceiver pretending to be pure light, but as a whole human being, fierce in your contradictions, alive in your authenticity. This rebellion is not comfortable, but comfort is the language of the unconscious, the narcotic it uses to keep you asleep. Rebellion is the awakening, the decision to wrestle with the forces within and emerge, scarred perhaps, but free. There comes a moment, after the rebellion has begun, when you realize something almost unbearable. The unconscious is not your enemy. It never was. The shadows you fled from, the patterns that imprisoned you, the voices that sabotaged your plans. They were never trying to destroy you. They were trying to teach you. Jung understood that the unconscious is not merely a vault of repressed wounds, but a reservoir of wisdom far older than you. It carries not only your forgotten pain, but also the symbols, myths, and archetypes that connect you to the entire human story. The unconscious is not simply yours. It is the wellspring of humanity itself, the place where your individual life touches the eternal. This is the final paradox. The very force that enslaves you is also the force that can liberate you. The unconscious controls your life until you learn to walk with it, until you allow its symbols to guide rather than bind you. The ultimate truth is this: you are not a solitary self, sealed in a skin. You are a meeting place of light and shadow, reason and instinct, personal memory and ancestral myth. To awaken is not to conquer the unconscious, but to enter into dialogue with it, to recognize that your life is not just an accident of biology, but a story unfolding at multiple depths. Consider what this means for your suffering, the depression that felt like a void, the anxiety that felt like a curse, the compulsions that left you ashamed. What if they are not defects, but messages? What if the darkness you resist is carrying the seed of transformation? A nightmare can be a warning. A failure can be a redirection. A fear can be a doorway to your deepest strength. The unconscious speaks in riddles because truth cannot always be spoken directly. A symbol does not explain, it reveals. When you face your shadow, you are not simply integrating repressed anger or desire. You are reuniting with parts of yourself that have been calling for recognition all along. And when you answer, you discover a wholeness that no external success can provide. This realization is not comfortable, nor is it final. There is no point at which you can declare yourself finished, fully awake, fully free. The unconscious is infinite. It will always exceed the boundaries of your conscious mind. But that is not a tragedy. It is the very condition that makes you human, a creature caught between the known and the unknown, forever reaching into mystery. The ultimate truth is not control, it is relationship. To live consciously is to live in conversation with what lies beneath, to pay attention to your dreams, your slips of the tongue, your irrational emotions, not as enemies, but as companions on the path, to recognize that fate is not an external power, but the echo of your own unexamined depths. And so, you stand at the threshold. Behind you is the life of unconscious repetition, of patterns mistaken for destiny, of shadows projected onto others. Before you is the possibility of awakening, not to a sanitized perfection, but to a life lived in radical authenticity. The question that began this journey still lingers. If you are not the sole author of your life, then who or what is living through you? The answer is no longer frightening. It is liberating. What lives through you is larger than your conscious ego. It is the totality of your being, shadow and light, wound and wisdom, human and mythic. To embrace this truth is to step into your life as though for the first time. To feel, perhaps, that you are not merely surviving, but participating in something vast and mysterious. You are not just a character in a script written long ago. You are also the playwright, revising as you awaken, weaving your unconscious depths into conscious creation. And so the journey ends where it began, with a question that refuses easy answers. But now, when you wake tomorrow morning and stare at the ceiling above you, you might feel something different stirring inside. A quiet awareness, a recognition, perhaps even a strange gratitude for the shadows that once ruled you. For you know now, they were not prisons, but sagas. The unconscious controls your life until the moment you turn toward it and discover that it was never control at all, but a call to awaken, to integrate, to become whole. And in answering that call, you step into the ultimate freedom, to live at last as yourself.